Okay, the guys at Green Stuff World did task me with testing out their acrylic paint range, and they've signed up for 6 videos, one a month for 6 months, to basically show you guys what I think of these paints, how they perform, what kind of things I can do with them, and stuff like that. We had a little bit of back and forth of what we'd like to do to show off these paints, and at the end, we of course landed on Trench Crusade. I wanted to do a Trench Crusade series, they wanted to show off their paints, so why not meld the two things together? This is actually the second video. Check out the first, it is last month's one, we'll link it down below. But in this one, we are going to be working on a particularly awesome miniature, which originally wasn't actually planned to be the model for today, but unfortunately, the model that was supposed to be used for today's video didn't print correctly. But luckily, I already had this miniature printed out from a previous project, so I was more than happy to kind of change tacks and work on this awesome piece. In this particular video, I want to focus on the skin tones that you can get from the Green Stuff range paints and how awesome I genuinely think they are. They're quite surprising. I've started to use them in pretty much my day-to-day painting to paint up normal Caucasian faces. So let me know what you think about those in the comments below. Also, before we get stuck in, just a huge thank you to all of the new patrons that have joined the community. Obviously, we have been updating and improving our Patreon over the course of the last few weeks, really stepping up our game with what we offer over there. Not only do you guys get extra videos a week, there's also extra podcasts. There's also extra things going on in the community like showcases and painting competitions and stuff like that. And also we are doing monthly giveaways over on the Patreon. This is of course October's giveaway. It is a full Night Questoris. As you know, we're getting to the end of this month. So at the end of this month, we will name a winner of this. If you want to be in with a chance of it, all you need to do is of course be a member of the Patreon at any tier and you're in with a chance. So please do check that out. Linked down below. Okay, with all that prattle out of the way, let's dive in, get this awesome miniature painted up. Okay, first things first, as always, it's time to prep the miniature. Although Trench Crusade did just announce they are bringing out some beautiful plastic kits, up until that point, all of the models were digital, so i.e. you had to get them 3D printed. So I 3D printed this piece at home. It's a very, very nice miniature. I had, like I said in the intro, had previously printed it out, but I haven't actually done anything with it since then. So it was kind of sad that one model got ruined, but nice that I finally got to dig into this particular beast. He's just awesome. I do love the aesthetic of Trench Crusade. It's quite a gnarly kind of theme, really dark and grim setting, and I really enjoy it. I thought as an added bonus in this video, I would add on how I would do trench bases. As you can see, I start with some coffee stirrers and I just break them to the lengths required for the base. Step 2 is actually snipping them lengthways because the boards are far too wide to actually represent boards in 28mm scale. So you break them down to these smaller boards. It only takes a little snip and a bend. If you can pick up the coffee stirrers where the kind of wood grain is going the correct way, it's much easier to break. Once you have them all broken down, you just add a strip of super glue and then press these pieces into the base, holding them with anything other than your fingers. I use the lid off my knife sometimes to hold the piece down. Like the moisture and oils in your skin makes super glue stick to it super fast. So doing it this way is just a lot easier. So repeat that process, leaving gaps between the planks until you're left with something that looks kind of like this. Once you have that kind of step all done, all you need to do now is trim the boards to the size of the base. So you just kind of rim around the base, cutting off the excess bits of plank until you are left with a really nice, tidy looking trench base, at least the base of one anyway. After that, all we simply do is we add some texture paste to the base to fill in all the grooves, represent all that mud and grime and gross stuff. Like I said, it's a super quick step, and these bases are super quick to make. I've made them for pretty much my entire Death Corps of Krieg army, so of course they're going to suit the Trench Crusade stuff down to the ground. So super happy to show that to you guys as well. I also kind of attached the model to the painting handle, just a tiny bit of super glue under his feet, and stuck him down so I can paint him whilst the base is drying and all that kind of jazz. It is still very wet and miserable here in Ireland currently, so I decided to base prime them with the airbrush. So I broke out the Green Stuff World primer. The matte black primer is just really, really good. It gives great coverage, and I do really quite enjoy the matte black color you get from this paint. So big happy with that. We then moved on to the surface primer, which is the Blanca Matte, which once again is just a white, and we're going to give that a little zenithal, just so all those details kind of pop out and we can see what we're working with this awesome miniature and where we need to paint. Okay, we are going to kind of focus on two main parts of this model, which is the flesh and all those rags. So we got blushing flesh is the base color for all the skin that we're going to do. And I'm going to very carefully go through and base coat all of the skin parts of this model with this blushing flesh color. It's a really nice kind of dark but rich skin tone. It's got really good coverage. It's the kind of one thing, this is my second video for Green Stuff World's paints. And obviously I'm still discerning how they work and what my pros are and stuff like that. And one of the things I've noticed is they kind of go on like a contrast, somewhere between a normal acrylic paint and a contrast. They're kind of watery, but they're so high in pigment that they, like when they dry, they make a super solid coat, which makes it really easy to apply the paint. So like things like batch painting and stuff like that is going to be really, really useful. Your brush is going to move a lot faster and you're going to get like greater coverage with each kind of brush. So I really quite like that about them. I'm learning to use that to my advantage. Next, we're going to throw that flesh shade across all of that skin as well, which will darken it down quite nicely. Start to show off that definition a little bit more. Now, here's where it gets a bit weird because I actually go back to the blushing flesh and use that as my mid-tone color, highlighting up all those skin parts, all the kind of musculature and all those raised details. My brush strokes are following the kind of way that a muscle would stretch. So like a pectoral muscle, as you can see, I'm going from left to right. You wouldn't go top, like, you know, top to bottom. That would look bizarre on a muscle kind of group like that. But side to side just kind of over accents it and it looks really cool. Obviously, I'm being very patient. I'm taking my time. I'm making sure to get all those highlights or layers in the right spot to really define the kind of awesome physique of this cool model. After we have that done, we are going to jump up to the kind of the last highlight that we're going to do for the skin, which is the elf flesh color, or the elven flesh color. And we're going to basically repeat ourselves, but this is the final highlight of the skin. It's quite a bit more kind of poppy, quite a bit more bright. So we're going to do the same kind of scratchy highlight, but aiming for the center of each muscle, leaving that nice kind of dark tone all around the outside. And obviously letting it bleed through the brush strokes as well. And this is a really cool, makes the whole kind of thing just pop and scream off the model. Obviously, lots of people paint the Trench Crusade models, and correctly so, very, very grim dark. I'm not too keen on doing that, to be honest. I'm going to kind of break from the mold a little bit and go a little bit more kind of bright and vibrant with things like the skin tone. Obviously, I'm going to hit dark tones on all the metallics and all those cool rags and stuff he's got on, but for his skin, I quite like it being a little bit more kind of punchy and standouty on the battlefield. Like all the tables are going to be super grim and dark, and I want the models to kind of elevate from those a little bit more. Skin tone is looking pretty cool. Time to start working on some of those other colors. So like I said, I'm primarily going to focus on the skin. It's like brown cloth rag bit. So I grabbed Coyote Brown and I'm going to base coat in all those kind of parchmenty fabric bits with that. So yeah, skin, the cloth bits, and the black hood, which obviously goes onto his black gloves, are going to be the kind of three main features of this model that I'm going to focus on and show you in great detail. I'm going to do all the silver and brass and gold and all those extra bits as well, but I may not kind of share every single step I do with those, or else the video would be 40 minutes long when it doesn't really need to be. Coyote Brown is another one of those ones where it flows so easily off the brush, but gives a really strong tone. You're not left with any brush strokes or any of that white bleeding through. It's just a solid coat, which I think is really cool. Temple Ochre was the next color I used for the fabrics, and obviously I started that same kind of scratchy highlight following the direction of the kind of, I keep saying fabric, but I'm fairly sure they are parchments. This guy's probably covered in like holy texts as he wades his way into war. This by being a member of the Trench Pilgrim warband, which is pretty cool. Saying his name is really difficult for me. He is a Trench Pilgrim Communicant, I think is how you say it, but I struggle for that to like roll off my tongue, but it's cool. Parchment is the final highlight that I would go through for this parchmenty section. Now, with this, when I realized I was finished with this, I wasn't 100% happy with the parchment. I think I left it just a little bit too bright and vibrant, not quite as much contrast as I kind of wanted to achieve. I decided to leave it alone for a step. I decided to jump onto the, like I said, the cloth, I don't know, hood that he's got on and his gloves, while I thought about what I wanted to do with this color to kind of change it up. And I did make a decision later on. I'll show you that in a moment. So back to the surface primer, because it's just genuinely a really good black matte paint. And I use this to block in, like I said, his cool hood and the gloves underneath his greaves and stuff as well. We block them in with that black paint. With that done, I obviously had to try and find a nice highlight color, and I found Barrel Grey when I was looking through all the paints they sent me, which is a really nice, quite dark brown paint, and it works a treat for highlighting the black parts up. It doesn't kind of make them pop. It doesn't, like, you know, change the color of it too much. It still reads as a black hood, but not just flat black. So it's a really cool find, this Barrel Grey color. I really like it, so I'll definitely be using that more whilst painting some black parts of the model. Okay, this is where I decided to do something different with that fabric. So the first thing I grabbed was an Ancient Sepia color, and it's one of their inks. I was very nervous about their inks when I started painting with them, because inks traditionally are glossy, and I wasn't looking for a gloss coat on stuff, but I realized that their inks are actually matte when they dry. All their paints are really matte, which is really cool. So I knew that I could apply the sepia, darken down all of that parchment sections, and I wasn't looking to darken down the entire thing. I just wanted the recesses to be a little bit darker. So hitting them with this parchment really worked a treat, and it just meant that I could go back to the mid-tone and highlight that I had previously done and go in with a lighter highlight with both of those colors to make the parchment pop again, but leaving the recesses much darker. And I think the color of the parchment next to the skin definitely fit a hell of a lot better, and I was really happy with that result. So I'm glad I decided to go that extra mile, add an extra shade back in and kind of build it up instead of just leaving it with a color that I was kind of unhappy with. And whilst I had some of that sepia still wet on my palette, I decided to base coat in all of those boards on the base with that sepia color, making sure to get the ends as well. There's nothing worse than missing those ends. This is going to darken down and stain all of that wood a much kind of nicer and darker color. Okay, so obviously I've blocked in a lot of the other colors with all of the metallics and browns and gave them all a nice black wash. And then I'm going to kind of layer those sections up as well, using pretty much the same colors I used for the base coats. I really like the look of the dark iron. Obviously the Games Workshop paints have disappointed me a little bit when it comes to the shades. I wasn't a big fan of the change of the kind of the sepia and the brown, that kind of weaker tone. I've kind of gotten used to it, but now seeing a nice dark tone over metal again, I really just prefer that look. And I love building up the tones from that point, leaving the recesses nice and dark and all the kind of highlights really pop. I just think it's a much nicer, I don't know, thing to work. Like, I love that way that greave looks on his left wrist as well. It looks great. Bit of flaming orange was used to dry brush across that base. Now you may think, why in God's name is he using an orange color on the brown base? But orange does work a treat over these brown texture paints. If you look any old kind of like mud trenchy bases, because there's so much kind of iron oxide around and stuff like that, a nice little bit of orange really helps make the soil pop and look really rich. To knock it back down again, I go for a bone color. So this one is that one sun bleached bone color again, and giving that a light dry brush across those boards. And as you can see, it does work a treat. Makes the base look super interesting. Most people wouldn't have thought to use orange and a bone color to layer up their trench board bases, but it works a treat. This is once again that primer black that I used for the airbrushing at the start. I honestly have it on my desk now, and every time I need to use black, I just reach for that. So this airbrush on black primer, which is in a much bigger pot than normal paints, is just working a treat for me. After it was done, I got to attach the model to his final base and look upon this awesome Trench Crusade miniature. Once again, a huge thank you to Greens to Full for supporting and sponsoring this video and sending out those paints for me to try. Really enjoying the process. If you want to check them out for yourself, I'll leave some links down below. But yeah, another Trench Crusade video comes to a close. I can't wait to see what I do next month. If you have any specific things you would like to see for Trench Crusade, please don't hesitate to let them know in the comments below. While you're down there, like the video and make sure you're subscribed. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next one.